So protection, it's a very important thing, right? Have you ever seen a catcher in a baseball game? They have the big old net and then they have this face mask that goes over their face for protection. Now, if the catcher didn't wear that mask and a ball came at his face, he would get hurt really bad. That would really, really hurt, wouldn't it? Well, or let's say a motorcycle rider. What do they wear for protection? Those helmets that fit on their head. Can you imagine if a motorcyclist got into an accident and didn't have a helmet on? They would most likely do a lot of brain damage in their head for the rest of their life. So that the catcher and the motorcyclist understand one thing, and that is that they needed protection. So without the proper equipment, bad things can happen. Today, we're learning about the armor of God. The Apostle Paul teaches us in Ephesians chapter 6 that it is the armor of God that God has given us to protect us and help us win the battle against our enemy, the devil. We have to put on the armor every single day. Every morning we start new. Every morning we put the armor on before we go out into the world where our spiritual battle is. Some people think they can handle the pressure of life just by themselves. I'll do it. I can take care of myself. Well, that is the old way of thinking. But remember, we are Christians and we have a new normal once we accept Jesus in our hearts. The new normal is that we have to understand that we have to have God's help to defeat our enemy. Paul uses the pieces of armor that a typical Roman soldier would have used to describe the different areas that God gives us for protection. So the first one is the belt of truth, right? The belt was the most important piece that a Roman soldier wore. It was the piece that tied all the other pieces together, kind of held everything together. So he kept it in place so that the rest of the time he was fighting the battle, he wasn't worried about picking up his armor and things getting around in his way. So that was the important thing. So the belt of truth is the most important thing for us Christians. Truth is what holds everything together. In the life of a Christian, we have to speak the truth. We have to spread the truth. We have to tell others the truth. And we have to live by the truth. In order for people to ever believe that what we say about God and his love is true, we have to have a record with them. They have to know that we don't lie to them, that we always tell the truth. Imagine if somebody that you knew lies to you a lot, and then they come up and they tell you something super important. You probably don't believe them, right? Because you're used to them lying. So we need to make sure that we tell the truth all the time so that other people believe us when we tell them about God's. So the next piece of armor that Paul describes is the breastplate of righteousness. Now the breastplate, that was the piece of armor that protects the heart, the lungs. And so we have to do that too. We have to protect our heart. We don't want to sin. If we sin, we've kind of pricked a little bit of our heart away. So we have to make sure that we protect our heart. We don't want to let the devil have an opportunity to put things in there. So we want to protect it with the breastplate of righteousness. Now the shoes are the gospel of peace. The shoes are the boots that the Roman soldiers wore, protected their feet and let them march all over the ground, all over the rocks and the stones and the dirt and the soil and all that. So the boots helped them spread the power of the Roman Empire all over the world. So our gospel shoes should do the same thing. It should give us the power or the good, to tell the good news of Christ all over. It should be what we use to tell our friends about Jesus, and they'll take us wherever to tell whoever about Jesus. Remember that God will protect you when you do that. And then there's the shield of the faith. The shield of faith is the part of the armor that will help us to extinguish the fiery darts of Satan. In Roman times, the enemies would shoot flaming arrows or darts at them. And so they would hold their shield up, because if your shield was wooden, it would just burn, right? It wouldn't protect you very much, right? So we have to be, let me say this first. The Romans, they would soak leather and get it really wet, and then they would wrap their shield in that, so that when the fiery flames came, they wouldn't burn, they wouldn't catch on fire. So we have to have our shield, which is our faith in God. That's going to keep us from being burned by Satan's arrows. Remember, he will always try to hurt us with temptation and tempt us. And we have the faith, the shield of faith, to defend against that temptation. The helmet of salvation was a very important piece of the armor of God. The helmet covers our head. What's inside your head? Your brain, right? Yeah. So the brain is where every thought that we have is. It starts right there. So it's so important to guard our thoughts and our mind. So we have a helmet of salvation to do that. You know, everything you do starts in the brain, starts with an idea. So important to have our helmet of salvation on. And then we have the sword of the Spirit. So far, all of our weapons have been to defend us, defend our head, defend our mind, our heart from temptation, protect our feet, right? Well, the sword of the Spirit is not to protect us, but to attack the enemy. So the sword of the Spirit is the Word of God. Remember, the Bible is an amazing weapon. In fact, it's the main weapon that Jesus wants us to use. Do you remember when Jesus was tempted in the desert? He went without food and water for 40 days. And then Satan went to visit him. And Satan tempted Jesus. And everything that Satan said to him, Jesus came back with a Bible verse. So it is important for us to learn the Bible, know what's in there, and memorize those words so that we can attack Satan with the words of the Bible when temptation comes our way. So that's the armor of God, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of the gospel of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. We need to put on this armor every single day so that we can win the fight against the enemy. But remember, it's not in our power, right? God's power. God will protect us, but we have to put the armor on. So remember the person that we saw in the video earlier and they decided they didn't need the armor of God? What would it have looked like if they said, I do need the armor of God? And they relied on that instead of their own power. Let's watch and find out.
Ephesians 6:11 teaches us to put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies and tricks of the devil.
Man, my pastor's right. I don't ever start my day without putting on the full armor of God. I prayed and did it just this morning.
Hey, kid.
Who? Me?
Yeah, you. I got something for you.
Who are you?
The name's Tim. Temptation. And I've got drugs right here. You want some?
Are you kidding? This is the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. I put on the full armor of God so I could take on temptation.
We'll be right back.